Welcome to the She Hit Refresh podcast, a podcast for women aged 30 and over who want to transform their lives by moving abroad. Is that you? Well, if so, you are in the right place, and I am so happy that you found us. This podcast is sponsored by International Living, so thank you so much, International Living, for making this possible. And I think we should just jump right into it. I am so excited for today's guest because we have a very special guest. She's kind of like a celebrity here at She Hit Refresh, and her name is Cindy Sheahan. And she actually was a former guest. She was on our episode 15, if you've been listening to the podcast, which is from, I had to look, September 2019. Wow. So that was a while ago. I have kept in touch with Cindy, but the last time she was on the pod, a lot of things have happened since then, and we're so excited to share that with you. So just a little bit about Cindy before we jump in. She's a world traveler. She's an American expat. She is a wine drinker, and that I know. A rule breaker who has spent the past 7 years exploring the planet full time. When she was last on the pod, she was 58 years young, and she had been traveling the world solo for 2 years. But as I mentioned, a lot has changed, and now she's currently living in Palermo, Sicily. What a dream. And has just become an Italian citizen through ancestry by descent, which some of you may be looking to doing also. But Cindy is now 63 years young, and she continues to travel. She's actually headed to Vietnam and China with her French paraglider boyfriend, who she met on Tinder in Nepal. So those who have listened to the previous podcast, he is still in the picture. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then she's off to Korea on her own this spring. Cindy, we are so excited to have you back on the pod. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. Wow, I just love doing this, and I love chatting with you anyway, no matter where we are.
Yeah, well, I know our listeners are very excited to hear your updates. I would say you are probably the podcast guest that people ask me the most about or reference you or remember your story. Yes. So I'm so excited for them to hear all the updates of the past, what is that? Yeah, 5 years since we last chatted on the pod. So we'll go into details for a lot of things that have happened, but I guess just share with us, what is the biggest change that has happened in your life in the last 5 years?
Oh gosh, I would say the biggest change and the best thing that's happened is that I was able to get an EU passport. So I am now the proud owner of a maroon passport, which has been my goal and my end game for the last couple of years. And so it finally happened in June of, what is this year? Last year, 2024. So I was able to get my citizenship conferred and recognized by the Italian government and got a passport. And that has just given me a big sigh of relief. It was a really stressful couple of years. And as you know, I started off in Portugal with the D7 visa, so we can talk about that. But, you know, it's been kind of a long and roundabout journey, and it's been fun and it's been crazy. And here I am living in Sicily.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. Yeah, I have been following your journey, as many of us have, of you getting, seeking your Italian citizenship and jumping through all the hoops. And finally seeing you have that passport in your hand really is a huge milestone.
I should have had it with me. Sorry, I should go grab it.
So we could see it. Yeah, it's a huge milestone. So congratulations. And it really does give you a lot more options. So we are going to talk about all that. But you mentioned Portugal. I know you are coming to us live from Sicily right now, but let's take it back to Portugal. I mean, you were traveling. So last time you were in the pod, you were traveling, very nomadic. And I know you still live a nomadic life, but at some point you settled down in Portugal. So I guess if you could tell us a little bit about why you picked Portugal and then your experience moving there on the D7 visa, which for those who don't know is Portugal's retirement or non-lucrative visa.
Throwing it back to you, the reason I ended up in Portugal is because I bought the book, I'm Out of Here, that you just recently updated. And I was going through the book, trying to figure it out. Well, let me back up for a minute. So my ex-husband is an Irish citizen. So all of my 4 kids were able to get their Irish passports. And it was a no-brainer. It took like a couple of weeks. It was nothing. But then I was standing there going, wait a minute, what about me? Like, I can't get an Irish passport because I'm not Irish. And oh, well, what am I going to do? So I did buy Cepee's book. And as I was going through it, I was like, oh, okay, well, Portugal, why not? I had been to Portugal probably 4 times before that. And it looked super fast, super easy, super cheap. And I thought, oh, okay, that's something I could get behind. So I applied for the D7, the non-lucrative, which means you are not allowed to work while you are on that visa. But once you become a resident, you actually can work. So I applied for it at the end of June in 2022, and I was living in Portugal in October of 2022. So it sounds really fast. At the time that it was happening, it wasn't happening fast enough, and there were some snafus and some bureaucratic crap that happened that, took a little bit longer. But I mean, all in all, it was really fast. And all of a sudden I was living my best life in Porto and had an apartment and connected with a bunch of friends that I had met through She Had Refresh, and also some of the expat women emigrating to Porto kind of pages. And yeah, so all of a sudden I was living in Porto when I was a European, and it was crazy. I was just like pinching myself all the time. Just, oh my God, I'm living here. I'm living in Porto. I don't have to leave after 90 days with any kind of Schengen restrictions. So that was huge. That was a big deal.
Yeah, that is a dream. Porto is such a beautiful city. Yeah, how lucky were you to live there? But I guess, what drew you to, finding a home since you had been nomadic, semi-nomadic for so many years? What made you think like, you know what, I think I want to get residency somewhere in Europe?
I think it was, it started back in 2016 with the political system in the US kind of unraveling and circling the drain. And I just thought, okay, do I have options? And at that time, I really didn't. Just as an American citizen, I could travel and I could keep traveling. And I was traveling a bunch, probably 10 months out of the year. But I kept thinking it would be so nice to have a home base in somewhere that wasn't in the US. So that's when I started thinking, okay, well, how can I make that happen? What can I do? And that's when I learned about the different kinds of visas that were available. And most of those seem to lead to citizenship, but it's a long way. I mean, the Portuguese D7 visa, it takes 5 years of residency before you can apply for citizenship. And then it might take another 2 or 3 years before you actually get approved. And for me, there was a lot of restrictions on how much time you could be out of the country. And in my mind, I had pictured that I would move to Porto and I would have an apartment and I would pop over to Budapest, and then I would zip over to Madrid for a concert, and I would, head over to Norway for the Northern Lights. And it wasn't like that. I had to be in Porto for 8 months out of the year. And that was not something I had thought very hard about. And I thought, oh, I can do it. It'll be fine. And it really wasn't. It was very restrictive for me. I mean, a lot of people want to live somewhere so they can live somewhere. I just wanted to live somewhere so I had somewhere to put my stuff so I could keep traveling. So, it was good. It was great. And I made it work. And I went to the Azores and to Madeira and all up and down Portugal, and, really explored the heck out of it because I was kind of forced to stay in Portugal. And then during that time, I don't know, I wish I could remember who told me this, but somebody said to me, you can apply for Italian citizenship because you have Italian ancestry. And I said, yeah, I was trying to do that, back in Denver during COVID and collecting all the documents, but that was going to take 5 or 6 years. So, I moved on to the Portugal thing. And they said, no, you can move to Italy and apply in Italy, and you can have your citizenship in a matter of months. Well, I think I had my apartment in Porto packed in 20 minutes. And it's like, all right, then, pivot. So I kind of just, said, okay, I can do this then. I didn't know I could stay in Italy for the amount of time it would take past the 90 Schengen days and still be able to be there legally. And it all works out. And that's a whole nother podcast of what you do and all the hoops that you have to jump through for that. But I did get rid of my apartment in Porto, said goodbye to the people that I had met there and all the fun I had had there, and just kind of, turned around and went to Italy to get the citizenship taken care of there.
Oh, wow. Well, that is a pivot. So, how long were you in Portugal then before you left for Italy?
I was in Portugal for just over 10 months, so
Okay.
almost a year. And the guy that I was renting from, he was fine with me taking my lease short and leaving because he he needed the apartment back anyway, so it worked out fine. He ended up buying most of the furniture I had bought. So it really, and you find this when you make choices like this, when it goes well, and things just fall into place and things just happen and the universe kind of pushes you along. So it worked out really well. It wasn't a problem at all. So I contacted a service provider in Italy and told them I was ready to go. And at this point, I had all my documents. So I had collected all the things that I needed, all the birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, all the things you need. And I contacted this guy that I had heard good reviews about and told him, okay, I'm ready. And he said, okay, come on over. And so in January of 2024, he told me 2 days before I was in Italy with the French paraglider, and we were in Palermo and Sicily, and we were checking out, Sicily, because we thought, well, that could be a cool place. And Daniel, the guy who was going to be helping me with my citizenship, said, "Okay, come on over. You're going to be living in Umbria. I have an apartment for you, and they will go ahead and process your documents for you." So, a couple days later, I hopped on a plane and went there, and he had an apartment ready for me, and that's where I landed.
Wow. Okay. Full service here. So, quick question before we talk maybe a little bit about Italy. If you would not have found out about this Italy path where you could move there and get your citizenship from there, do you think you would have stayed in Portugal?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I had no problem with Portugal. I had no
Hmm.
problem with Porto. I wasn't looking to leave. I wasn't uncomfortable there. I figured I would have to deal with the restrictive travel situation, of being in country for 8 months. But at the time I was like, well, maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I'm like running around too much. Maybe I need to just have a house and get a cat. I don't know. So I was like trying to lean into it while I wasn't leaning into it. So I don't really like people telling me what I can and can't do. So I think that's the problem. So when I
Definitely.
when I heard about the Italy thing, I thought, oh, wait a minute, I can get approved and get a passport in my hand in 6, 8 months. I was totally fine with that, and then I can keep going about my merry way and not be held to any kind of bureaucratic nonsense about where and how often I could leave any country. So
Definitely. All right. So before we talk about Italy, also one more question for anyone who's listening and maybe thinking about Portugal or Porto as a place. Maybe that's on their short list of where they want to move. Can you tell us some of the things that you did love about Portugal when you lived there, and maybe some of the challenges to living there too?
okay, you know how sometimes you see things more clearly when you leave and you look back at them. So I can tell you what I learned about Porto that I maybe didn't know at the time or didn't appreciate at the time. Porto has a really great metro system, which I love. Porto has an international airport, so you can leave. That's easy to get to on said metro. Porto has all kinds of international food. So there's Vietnamese food, Korean food, barbecue, everything you'd want. And I'll be honest, it's not a huge thing in Italy to be able to find that. Most places in Italy are monocultural food, and that's not something I'm okay with. So looking back and kind of viewing my time in Porto, I realized all of those things that were there that were so cool that I might have taken for granted because it was the first place I lived in Europe. But now I see that they were all pretty special. And it's what makes Porto such an amazing place to live. I don't know, it's great. I highly recommend it. I don't have a problem with it at all. Some of the struggles are the language is not easy. I know a little bit of Spanish and enough to be dangerous. And when you look at the Portuguese language written, it looks like it might be said the way Spanish is spoken, and it's not at all. So when people are speaking to you, it's not at all what you think you're hearing. And I struggled with that a lot. It was not easy. There's a lot of shushing and a lot of kind of guttural stuff. And so it's kind of hard to understand and it's kind of hard to replicate. So I did go to language school and I was trying. And yeah, it was a struggle. But other than that, I will say, and I don't want this to come across as something negative about the Portuguese people because it is what it is, but I feel like Portuguese people, and this is compared to Italian people, are much more reserved, much less outgoing, I should say. And I'm in Sicily, so we can talk about that, but like it's like night and day, you know. So and that appeals to me. I like that about Sicily, and I like that about Palermo, and I didn't realize that about Porto again till I left.
Well, I think, yeah, let's talk a little bit about Italy now. So, okay, I know that you went to Italy because you had this fast track into getting your citizenship, but was Italy a plan in your mind? Like one day, maybe after I get my Portuguese citizenship, I will move to Italy, or did something shift along the way?
You seem to think I have plans. You seem to think I have like things mapped out where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do. And I totally don't. I do not. I just kind of walk out the door and see where it takes me most days. Which is funny, actually, now that I think of it, because as the mom of 4 kids, everything we did was highly structured and very planned and very thought out because you can't go anywhere with 6 people just on a whim. So I think when I started doing my solo travel, that was something that appealed to me, was that it was just me. Like I could get out the door in a minute instead of, an hour with 4 small people and a man-child for a husband. So it's been really nice just to be able to go with the flow and do what I want. And so back to your question, no, I don't think I ever was like, oh, when I grow up, I'm going to move to Italy and retire there. Like, first of all, I don't think that ever would have even occurred to me. And then, when I found out I could do this, it was such a treat and such a surprise and such a gift that I was so happy to do it. And I mean, I've met a lot of people doing this process living in Italy, and a lot of them get their passport and they leave. And they go to Germany, they go back to the US, they go to anywhere. I mean, the beauty of having an EU passport is you have the availability to live and work and get medical care in, 27 countries, something like that, 29, I forget. I got my passport here in Italy and I was like, oh no, I'm good. I'm staying here. Will I stay here forever? I have no idea. I don't know what I'm doing forever, but I love it and it really fits me. And I really feel like I've found a really cool place that kind of jives with my energy. And so that's what I love about it so far.
I love that. I love that for you that you found your place, at least for now. I know you talked a little bit already about the process of being able to go to Italy and get your citizenship there. And I know we could do a whole podcast about that whole process, but just at a very high level, can you tell people again of like what that is, what that entails if somebody does qualify? And I know there's a lot of caveats, you got to check this and things have changed recently. But if you do qualify, I mean, do you literally just move to like hop on a plane to Italy with no special visa, just as a US citizen with your passport and start the process there?
Okay, I'll try to give you like the Reader's Digest version of that and get it quick. Because again, like you said, I mean, we can talk about this for probably 3 hours on how this process works and doesn't work and all the hoops that you have to jump through. But in a perfect world, you would have all your documents together that show that you are connected to all the people going back to the original person who left Italy whenever they did. Now, maybe it's your dad, and so maybe you have a very small pile of documents. For me, it was my bisnonno and my bisnonna, which are my great-grandparents. So I had to collect all of those documents, and there were many. So once you get those documents ready, then you get them translated, and then you can move to Italy and do the process without a service provider, and people do it. And there's an amazing Facebook group that has literally published guides on just what you do from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. And so you can definitely follow that. I don't speak the Italian language. I think I was exhausted from doing the Portugal thing on my own. And so I was happy to just pay a service provider and have an insider track. And he was able to say, okay, based on your paperwork and the misspellings of the people's names, maybe the date discrepancies, because you're looking at documents that are from the 1880s, and there's different ways of spelling things. Then things were anglicized, so people's names were changed from Elisabetta to Elizabeth, which makes total sense, right? Giuseppe, people's names were changed to Americanize them so they fit in the US, but that can work against you when you're doing this documentation. So I hired a firm who took all my documents and basically held my hand and walked me into the city hall and said, here, this is Cynthia. She's here to apply for her citizenship. And he did all the talking and the explaining to the clerk there. And then he helped me go to get what's called a permesso. Because if your process is going to go more than 90 days, you need to be in the country legally. And so you apply for this thing called a permesso di soggiorno, which means that it's permission for you to stay. And so you apply for that through the post office. It's not really a big deal, but I wouldn't have known what to do or what to say. And I was in a tiny town in Umbria, a tiny town of like 5,000 people. Maybe that's not tiny, it's tiny for me. But I would not have known what to say to the person in the post office. And, in smaller towns, people don't speak English. They really don't. So I would have been at a disadvantage. So I was happy to have someone kind of lead the way for it. He helped me apply for this permesso, and then he said, okay, now we wait, So you have to wait for the police officer to come through from the city hall to make sure that you're actually living in the apartment that you're in, because you have to have a lease that's registered. So all of these little things, like you can't just show up and stay in an Airbnb for a couple months and just hope it works out. It has to be done the way it has to be done. So it was great to have somebody just sort of, I was in the passenger seat for that whole ride, so it was great. I didn't have to drive. So he was great. He was patient. They were super nice people. It was frustrating. I will tell you, it's frustrating. People in Southern European countries move at a much different pace than people from North America or from Northern Europe, and I would be going out of my mind saying, can't we call them and ask for an update? Why can't we stop in there? Why can't we email them? And he was always like, piano, slow down. It's like, I don't know how to slow down. I just want this to happen. So I had to really learn patience, or I should say practice it, because I haven't learned it. But there's that. So, you wait. But, while I was waiting, I was hopping on the train and going to Rome for the weekend, or like popping up to Bologna, or, checking out different cities in the neighboring area of Umbria. And I also went to Tunisia, and I went to Portugal and visited my friends there in Porto, and I went to Spain. So, I didn't just sit around doing nothing, because that's not what I do. So, after a couple of months, I think it was 5 months, with a couple of missing documents and a couple of FedExes back from the US with more documents, we finally got it all squared away.
A lot of ups and downs. And when people hear 5 months, that is very quick. But when you were in it, those 5 months feel like 5 years. It's like, are we ever gonna have a resolution? Am I ever gonna get it? Is this ever gonna be over?
And I'm a doer, I'm a fixer. So it was really frustrating for me to be like, wait, what do you mean we can't go there? The city hall was like a 2-minute walk from my apartment. I'm like, why can't I just go in there and say, what are you doing? Why are we taking so long? What are we waiting for? And he kept saying, no, that's not what we do. Okay. So, yes, 5 months sounds like nothing, but when you're waiting and you're just kind of, anxious to wrap it all up and get on with it. I knew I wasn't going to live in that village in Umbria. It was lovely. It was beautiful. It was quiet. It wasn't for me. So when I got my passport, or when I got my citizenship conferred, I actually went back to the US to see my kids, and I went to the Chicago consulate there in the US and got my passport processed and mailed to me in Denver. So I didn't do that part of it in Italy. And then I was like, okay, let's try Palermo. So I thought, all right, let's see if this works. And to be honest, like the first couple of weeks I was here, I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Maybe I should just go back to Porto and see the people that I know, and I know how that works. And I was like, no, like don't make any rash decisions yet. So I waited, and I just was like, okay, let me figure this out. And it's hard when you don't know, like, where's the grocery store? What kind of coffee do I get? How does this washing machine work? Honest to God, you guys, washing machines in Europe are just the worst. So trying to figure all that out again, and just, it can get a little exhausting. But once I kind of got landed on my feet, I was like, okay, all right, I can do this. And then, honest, every day, like I walk out the door here in Palermo, and every day just is like better than the day before. It's just such a cool place. And if you haven't been here, come and visit me and I'll show you around. And it's a really dynamic place. It's loud, it's crazy, it's dirty, it's noisy, it's stinky. There's street art, there's dog shit, there's people everywhere. I mean, it's wild. It's wild. It is not a quiet hilltop village in Umbria.
Yeah, it is. That is so funny. I actually went to Palermo 21 years ago. In 2004, I went and have not been back since. But I remember arriving to the airport in Palermo from, I don't know where it's flying from, if it was in Italy or somewhere in the US. But, anyways, getting to the airport, and just the baggage claim was already like so chaotic. Getting on a bus, I remember taking a bus from the airport, chaos. It was just a lot of chaos. And I am someone who likes cultures that have a little less structure. And so I'm curious to go back now that you're saying that, like, I feel like I would actually really like it again too. I don't remember too much from it, but I do remember the airport arrival experience.
It's interesting that you say the word chaos, because that is the defining word for Palermo. And not in a bad way. I'm not saying there's anything bad about it. I feel completely safe. It seems totally fine. It's just everything is kind of happening at the same time. So I'm like you, Cepee. I like places like Marrakesh and places like Istanbul, places that have like a lot of energy and a lot of noise, and everything's kind of upside down all at the same time. Like, I don't think I could live in Switzerland, for example, where everything is beautiful and peaceful and clean and orderly. So I do like that about Palermo, and it really appeals to me that there's just an energy about it, that you get from that chaos, where it's just so fun, and there's just so much electricity in the air all the time. So I really love that about this place.
Yeah, yes, I can see that. I'm a never Switzerland. Beautiful place to visit, but also too much structure and rules for me to live there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about love life here, because last time you were on the pod, you had met someone special. And we're fast forwarding 5 years, and that special someone is still in your life, which I think is incredible. So can you just remind the listeners who maybe haven't heard the first episode, how you met really quickly, and maybe how your relationship has evolved over time?
Sure. So when I was living in Denver before I started this year of travel, I tried the online dating thing. And you guys, I was married for 32 years. Okay. So like I hadn't dated since I was probably 21. So it was, it was a thing. It was crazy. So I had just thought, why not? I'll just turn on my phone when I'm traveling. And I was in Southeast Asia, and I turned on my phone and I flipped on Tinder, and I was in Vietnam, and I met 2 or 3 really super nice guys. And, it's just fun to meet other travelers when you're traveling and be able to sit down and have a coffee with somebody and just, connect with someone. So that was fine. Nothing there, no one special. And then when I went to Nepal, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just see if there's anybody around to hang out with. So I turned on Tinder in Nepal, and I connected with this guy like in a minute, and he swiped right back. And all of a sudden he was saying to me, oh, so where are you? And I told him I was at this bar in Pokhara. And he said, oh, okay, I'll see you in 20 minutes. And I went, what? That's not how this works. Like, we have to talk for a couple of weeks, and then you can ghost me. That's how it works. So he just kind of walked up and sat down and we had a beer together. And he said, well, do you want to go for dinner later? I was like, okay, sure. So that's kind of how it started. And I spent a couple days with him in Pokhara, and he was there because he is a paraglider by profession. And everyone always says, wait a minute, that's his job. Yes, it's his job. So he is a tandem paraglide instructor and flyer. So when you go to, like if you want to go skydiving or something, it's similar to that. So he works in kind of central France in the Dordogne Valley, and he has his own business, and he takes people up flying all the time. And that's what he does during the tourism season. And then when it is the winter, he would head off to Nepal because there's a place there called Pokhara that has ideal flying conditions pretty much every day. So that to him is his joy. Like he just goes and flies every day. So I happened to be there in Pokhara because I had just done a week-long trek with that's a whole nother story, but just with this a tour guide and like one 70-year-old hippie dude from England, and we were the only people on the trek. So I had gone to Pokhara to paraglide. I was like, oh well, sure, I've never done it, but why not? I'll check it out. And that's how we met. So his nickname is Pew. And so Pew and I have been together since March of 2018. And when we did the podcast, Cepee, I remember saying, like, I don't know where this is going, and I don't know what we're called or like what this is that we're doing, but I guess we're just kind of hanging out. And he came to the US and I showed him around Colorado, and then I went to France, and then he met me in Italy, and then we went to Croatia, and then we went to Madagascar, and then it just sort of kept going. And we're apart more than we are together. I think that's why it works.
Wait, I want to jump in because I love this. And also, I did the math wrong. It's been almost 7 years now. This is a long relationship. Oh my gosh, I'm loving this. 7 years. But I love that you just said that you are apart more than you're together, because I love this, because every relationship is its own universe and we can create it however we want. Like you guys, he doesn't live with you in Palermo. He's not in your apartment living with you full time, right? But you guys spend a lot of time together. I mean, you're travel buddies. You can tell us, I guess.
It's funny because one time we were together and I took out a notebook and I took out my calendar and I went through and I wrote down all the times we had been together. And we've been to like 25 different countries together. And usually when we travel, we're together for anywhere from like 4 to 8 weeks, and that's your person for 4 to 8 weeks. And that's who you're talking to and eating dinner with and, sharing a bathroom with for all that time. So it can be pretty intense, but we travel together perfectly. Like it's fine. I don't even think we've ever even had a fight. So we do really well together, and we both like to travel pretty cheap and pretty low to the ground, and we're not fancy people, and we have no problem with wearing the same clothes time and time again, or looking at the other person who's wearing their same clothes time and time again. Like there's nothing fancy here, But I did take out a notebook and I wrote down all the times we were together, and it was only 2 years. We had been together for 6 years, and we had only actually been in the same room together for 2 years. So
hey, that's the secret to making it work.
I'm telling you.
I love that. Well, thank you for giving us a little update about y'all's story, because that's also something that people comment on a lot about Cindy and the Frenchman. And as you mentioned, you guys travel a lot together, but you are still doing solo travels also, right? And I know you travel with your bestie, who I've had the pleasure of meeting. Do you still enjoy traveling alone now that you have a partner? Or
I think all of the different ways that you can travel are beneficial and pleasurable and amazing. So I have a really good friend that Cepee has met, Teresa, and she and I travel so well together. I mean, some people, you don't travel well together and it can get bumpy and potentially ugly. But Teresa and I, we're always like, did you want to go get a beer? I was just going to say that. Should we go check this out? I was just going in there. So we're always kind of on the same page. And we also give each other a lot of space. So when we're together for a trip, we'll say, now, remember, like if you want to go look at that castle and I don't, go look at that castle. I'll be sitting here and I'm going to get a coffee, or I'm going to read my book, or I'm going to go shopping or something. So we don't spend every moment together and we don't get annoyed with each other if we're not together all the time. So that's really important, to kind of clarify that with whoever you're traveling with, that you should each be able to have some space. And if you feel like going for a bike ride, one of you goes and the other one might not. So I love traveling with her for that reason. I love traveling with the French guy because, oh gosh, he just takes care of all the details. It's so nice. He'll be like, okay, I found this really good hike. I think you're going to like it. It looks perfect. I know where we can park. And I just kind of show up. And that's never been anything I've been able to do in my life, is just show up and have things done and taken care of. So that's beautiful. And he's good to me, and we laugh a lot and we have a great time. I also love traveling alone because, oh my gosh, it's just, if you guys haven't traveled solo, you have to do it, And my friend Teresa's like, I'm not traveling solo. Why do I want to do that? I'm like, you have to. And she still hasn't. I'm like, you have to. It's empowering. It's important. You're with the best person you can be with, which is yourself. You know what you want to do. You know where you want to go eat. You know if you want to sleep in or get up early or go see a sunset or go see a sunrise or not. You don't have to coordinate with anybody. You don't have to apologize to anybody. If you want to sit in a museum, and those benches that they have at museums in front of works of art, you can actually sit on those and stay for like 30 minutes if you want. I have never done that in my life because I've always had someone going, can we go now? Or are you done? So to be able to do that, and if you like that museum, go back the next day. I mean, you can do that when you're traveling solo. You have no one to complain to or complain about, and you just do what you want to do. And it's amazing. And you learn so much about yourself, and you learn so much about what you need to do to make things happen. You have to figure out, I was on a bus in Sri Lanka by myself, and I didn't know how to get to the bus. I had to actually stop and ask a monk, and he walked me to the bus. So you have to rely on yourself and your own wits, and you have to just kind of figure stuff out, and you can do it. And it's really, you get done at the end of the day and you're like, damn, I did good. I figured that out, and I found a great place to eat, and I'm staying in a hostel, and I've met some fun people, or whatever you're doing, and you can just kind of go through your day knowing that you did what you wanted to do. And it's amazing.
I agree. All the above. I also have a partner, but I still love solo travel. And actually, last year was a goal of mine to incorporate more of that, because I had been mainly a solo traveler until he and I met. And then he and I travel a lot. He's also works remotely, so we workcation around the world. And I was kind of missing my solo travels. So last year I did a few solo trips, but my big solo trip by myself was to Albania. I went to Albania 3 weeks by myself. And I actually got to have dinner with Cindy, who just happened to also be there. It was your first night and my last night, right? Is that how it worked? Yeah. And got
Yeah,
to see
Teresa and I
Cindy
had
there.
just arrived, so that was fun.
That was so fun, but it was just great. And I'm going on another solo trip next month. So I'll be
Ooh, where are you going?
I'm going to go to Paris by myself.
Ooh.
And then I'm going on a retreat, which isn't so solo because other people will be there, but still it's like me doing my thing. So I'm excited for that. Okay, let's talk about. I have so many more questions. I could keep you here for another 5 hours, but let's see what we can get through in the next few minutes here. I guess let's talk about some reflection here, because now you've been out of the U.S. for a long time. I know you do go back to visit, but you don't live there full time anymore. So, what's been the biggest life lesson that you've learned since living the U.S. Since you left to travel and now living abroad?
I think growing up in the US, you don't realize what other people think of Americans. And I've learned that a lot of people are in awe of Americans and think that everything is amazing, and they can't wait to go there someday, and they can't wait to move there someday, and they'd love to live there someday. And then other people will just kind of roll their eyes and be like, oh, American, huh? Okay. So it's been really eye-opening just to understand that as one of the largest and most powerful countries in the world, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about us, and so that's been interesting, to say the least. And I think what's been interesting too is learning how other people do things. When you live in a culture like the US, that I know it's different in the South than the North and the East and the West, and everybody's different in, cities and towns, but we all kind of still do things sort of the same way in the US. And so when you go to these other places and you visit somewhere like India, or you go to somewhere like Turkey, or I don't know, I've been to like 47 countries at this point. And you just see that there's no one way of doing anything. And there's lots of really cool ways of doing a lot of things. And just because we do it one way in the US doesn't mean it's the right way or the best way. And it's been really amazing to just kind of learn that and be open to the changes, and just to embrace that everybody's different. And there's so many different cool things out there to do and to learn and to experience. And if you go into it with an open mind and just kind of like, all right, bring it on, what do you got? It's just a whole lot more fun, and it's a lot of learning to be had. And you learn about, talking about Albania, when Cepee and I were in Albania together but separately, just to learn the history, that I'm like, why did I not know anything about this? There's so many things that, granted, they're teaching you history when you're 16 and you don't really care. So there's that. But there's just so much going on in the world that, I was unfamiliar with, or unknowledgeable about. And so I've just been walking around. It's like walking around, a university. The world is just teaching you something new every day. And it's just amazing. There's so much to learn and see and find out.
Love that. And I guess maybe this is in line with that, but how would you say your perspective on how you approach life has changed since you hit the road? What is that, back in 2017?
I would hope I'm a kinder, gentler soul. I would hope that I have more patience, and I have, been a little bit more open to different ideas and different people and different ways of doing things. Like I was just saying, I think, I've always been a risk taker. I'm happy to try any kind of food and all of that. So I don't have a problem with that. And, I think just being out in the world and being kind of untethered, is really a cool way to experience life. And I know it's not something that everyone can do, or anyone even wants to do. So I've kind of chosen to just go through it kind of free form and just see what happens, and kind of living for the moment. And, I like I said, I don't really have any long-term plans. I don't know if I'm going to stay in Italy. I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it, and I'm totally fine where I am right now. So we'll check back in another couple of years and do another podcast and see where I'm at that point. But, I'm kind of the mindset, like, if you can go now, go while the getting's good. And while you're healthy, and while you're able to move around, and while you can climb those waterfalls in Cambodia, and, swing on a swing in Brazil or wherever, and just, do the fun things that are out there to do, and get out there and grab it.
Yes. You're such an inspiration, Cindy. I am curious to know, what do your children, I mean, you have 4 adult children. What do they think of, your incredible life and lifestyle that you've built for yourself here?
They have been amazing. They could really be guilting me about things. I have 2 grandchildren now since this whole thing started, and they could really be acting cranky about it, but they have been amazing. They have been like, oh my God, go live your life, have your fun. Oh my gosh, we're so proud of you. When I am back in Denver and I'm at a barbecue or something, kids, I say kids, they're in their late 20s, early 30s, their friends will come up to me, oh my God, are you Kara's mom? Oh my God, I heard about your trip. Can you tell me what do I need to do about this? I just wrote an email today to a friend of mine's son who's probably 26, and he's coming to Palermo. He's like, what do I do? Where do I go? And so I'm always so flattered that kids, young people, are happy to talk to me and get some inspiration and some information. Because I kind of know what I'm doing at this point. It's been 7 years of full time, tromping around the world. So that's cool. But my kids have been great. My youngest daughter just moved to Australia. So that's exciting. So I'm really proud of her. And before that, she had come to stay with me in Italy for a month. And then she went to Valencia for a month. And then she was kind of got the bug, the travel bug. And so all of my kids have come to see me in Portugal and in Italy. And so that's been great, because that's a really fun way to do things, is to have them come here and then we can go explore around together. So that's been amazing. It's been really fun. My grandson and granddaughter, who she's 1 and he's almost 7, they were here in Palermo for about a week and a half in November. And so that was really fun. And of course, my grandson's like, well, I want to live in Italy. Like, okay.
Look at you paving the path for everyone, setting the example there. I love it. Well, you are very knowledgeable, and yeah, you have been doing this for a long time. So, what advice would you give for women listening who are dreaming of moving abroad, but they just feel like either it's too late, they're too old, or it's too complicated? What is your message to them?
It's not too late. You're not too old. And yes, it is complicated. But if you just put your mind to it and break it down into bite-sized pieces, people do it every day. You know, I see people on Facebook saying, oh, wouldn't that be nice just to get up and move? Yeah, it is. And yeah, you can do it. You know, you have to plan. You have to have a little bit of money to make it happen. And you can't just, get on a plane and go willy-nilly and think, oh, well, I'm just going to show up and get a job, because it doesn't work that way. So you need to do your research. You need to know what you're up against and what you need, and then just do it. The worst thing that can happen is you go and it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to, and you turn around and you go somewhere else. It's not the end of the world. I think I always felt like one of my favorite quotes is, you'll never regret the things you've done, only the things you didn't do. And somebody told that to me, seriously, the lady who used to cut my hair when I was 18. And I remember that quote. And so that stuck with me my whole life. So do the things you want to do. And, if it doesn't work out, do something different. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not, you're not going to get a failing grade. I mean, get out there and do something, because the time goes by whether you do it or you don't. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's like, if you're going to wait 10 years, 10 years have gone by and you're still in the same spot, I mean, just do the best you can, get out there, make it happen.
Yes, yes. And I love that you said that you are real about it, that it is complicated. We're not here to say that move abroad is easy. It requires a lot of work. I mean, why wouldn't it? You're uprooting your life and starting fresh in another country. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible. It's possible for so many of you out there. And you had mentioned my book earlier. I just want to mention that's what She Refresh is here for. Like, we help you bring this dream into a reality. And so we have my visa guide that Cindy mentioned. If you want to know what are your visa options, if you want to move to Europe, I have my 4-day masterclass. I mean, that gives you clarity on like what you need to do. A lot of people just don't even know where to start. My masterclass gives you that, and you walk away with a move abroad plan. And we also have our membership, the Refreshers Lounge, and that's for those who are actively working on it, to have the support, guidance, community resources to help them every step of the way. So there's lots of resources for you out there if you want to make this happen. And I just want to stress, you're not an only, because sometimes people think like, oh my God, this is so crazy. No one around me gets this. There's thousands of people every day, especially now, even more. There's never been more people who want to leave the US and other countries than there has been, I think, right now. So Cindy, because I'm sure everybody who's listening to this is like just so in love with you and wants to connect with you, where can people follow your adventures, learn more about you, and connect with you?
So I just unveiled a brand new website not that long ago at the beginning of the year, and that was a hell of a lot of work. And I didn't even do the heavy lifting on that one. But it's beautiful. So I hope you go there and check it out. It's called Posts from a Flashpacker. That's my handle, or whatever you want to call it. And that's my Facebook page and my Instagram page too. So I try to post there all the time. And my blog, I write a lot of things about like how to get a SIM card, what's an eSIM, how do you use an ATM correctly, just the little things that kind of, you don't know them until all of a sudden you're up against them and you're looking at the ATM and going, what the hell? So different things like that. I am a minimalist. I'm a backpacker. I am a carry-on only kind of girl. So I will be happy to talk to you about ways to minimize your suitcase so that you can be carry-on only. And happy to share the things I've learned along the way, because if I can help you avoid some trouble or some headaches, I'm happy to do so.
Fabulous. Yeah. And we'll include those links in our show notes. Well, Cindy, it was such a pleasure. I'm just like over the moon that we got to have you back on the pod and share what's been going on the last 5 years since we spoke. So thank you so much for taking your time to share with us today.
I am so happy to be here. And, this has always been my favorite group. If you guys aren't on She Had Refresh, the Facebook page, it's the most supportive, helpful people ever, really. Like, it's just such a nice group of women who are helping each other, which is what it's all about. And it's really a really good supportive group.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and leave feeling like a move abroad is even more possible for you. If you're happy with what you saw, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a question or comment because I would love to hear from you. If you're ready to take action on your dream to move abroad, be sure to grab my Visa Guide to Europe. It's your roadmap to over 50 viable visa options in 19 countries. You can grab the link below in the show notes. And don't forget to get on the wait list for my next Move Abroad After 30 Masterclass, a masterclass for women age 30 and up, which is a step-by-step training to help you fast-track your move abroad. And grab the link in the show notes as well. And last but not least, a huge shout out to our sponsor, International Living. Thank you so much for making this season possible. Until next time, ciao for now.